listening to the Third Coast Gridiron on the LSG Network with your host, Marc Henry.
Week 2 of the playoffs is here, and it's got to be up now, man. It's just nitty-gritty. Teams that, maybe have been not ready to take this next step have already gone home. This is the week of the playoffs where we find out the contenders from the pretenders. We're going to talk about that and more right here on the Third Coast Gridiron, the TCG, brought to you by Lone Star Gridiron, the authority for high school football in the state of Texas. I'm your host, Marc Henry. Each week we talk about Houston high school football all the way till we get up to state, which is about 5 weeks away. We got some major matchups about some major teams, a couple of teams that we kind of been talking about this year to make a run to Arlington to possibly win a state championship, and some teams that we didn't talk about that are in this round of the playoffs right here in the TCG, man. Tap in and stay with us, man. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Third Coast Gridiron for sure. Also, you can follow me at MarkN44 on the Mark Sports. But we're going to take a small break. We're going to dive into a few players from the body round that stood out. And we're going to dive right into these games. That's the most important thing to the show this week. We got to talk about these big matchups, some big-time matchups, 6A, 5A. Definitely right here in H-Town. H-Town's podcast, the Third Coast Gridiron. I am your host, Marc Henry. We'll be right back.
Lone Star Gridiron is looking for interns. Over the years, we have helped dozens of students get jobs in sports media. If you want to shortcut your path to a career in sports media, click on the internship link on LoneStarGridiron.com.
You got to let your playmakers be playmakers and your ballers be ballers. That's what we've been talking about if you've been listening to the season or you've been listening to the show this season, man. We're going to talk about a few guys around the age that balled out. Keelan Goss, senior running back at Grand Oaks, man, he had a phenomenal game in a 38-28 victory over Nimitz. Man, shout out to Grand Oaks, man. They've been one of those teams that's kind of been missing the playoffs the last couple of years, and they get actually in and make it to the second round. But Goss, 300 yards rushing, 2 tutties, 30 carries, averaged almost 10 yards a carry. He's rushed for 1,664 yards and 15 tutties on the season. And Grand Oaks is 7-4. They're in the second round. We'll talk about those guys a little bit later some more. Man, Johnny Herbert has just been phenomenal, man. He's cleared the 3,000-yard mark for the second consecutive season. He's headed to U of H. This is a bona fide star. He's been doing this for 4 years over Strake Jess. When his stock started to raise last year, he started to get offers from schools around the country. He settled on the U of H. Keyshawn Henderson. They're building something at U of H. I'm telling you, I can see it in the future. U of H getting a Big 12 title with these guys coming to the H over in Third Ward. South side of things, you know what I'm saying? But 384 yards, 4 tutties, 3,182 yards, and 38 touchdowns on the season. Man, this guy's, listen, if he's not up for Gatorade Player of the Year, I don't know what people are looking at. You know what I'm saying? This is one of those guys that runs that peel. That's what we call it. We call it running the peel. That's what he does. You know what I'm saying? And he's been doing it at a high level for 4 years over at Strake Jesuit. He's a guy, you know what I'm saying? Super big Third Coast shout out to him. Jackson Falden, senior quarterback at Tomball. Tomball's been one of those teams that's, been in the playoffs the last couple of years. The Cougars have been right on the cusp of getting to the fourth round. They made it to the second round. They made it to the third round a couple of years ago. They just hadn't been able to kick that door. And it's tough to get out of Houston. I know, around the state of Texas, we got DFW, of course, San Antonio, Austin, major areas that have teams. And then East Texas is a whole region in itself. It's tough to make it out of Houston because the Houston teams have to beat up on each other to get out of Houston. You know what I'm saying? So by the time they make it, they've been battle-tested. But, man, he showed up and showed out, 56-42 win over Waller, which is a really good team. We talked about Waller a couple times this year on the show. 11 for 15, 192 yards and 4 tutties, also rushed for 80 and another tutty. You know what I'm saying? He's got 31 total touchdowns on the season, including 27 passing and only 1 interception. That's high-level production. College coaches need to take a look at this guy. You know what I'm saying? Larry Sanders, running back for Lamar, did a phenomenal job. 155 yards and 2 touchdowns, averaging over 4 14 yards a carry. For the season, he's over 1,000 yards, all-purpose yards. Listen, Sanders is a guy that you need to look at, college coaches, when we talk about guys that have versatile skill sets. Can catch balls out of the backfield. He's an elite runner with elite cutback ability, quickness, ability to make guys miss in the open field, and he's got the speed to make a house call. The Texans got a 35-24 victory over Cy-Fair to advance to the next round. Shout out to Larry Sanders and Lamar. Jamarie champion over at Pearland. And we're going to talk about Pearland here in just a minute, man. Big matchup with Dickinson. I think, we're going to get into this game. But we got to talk about champion in the 59-27 victory over Travis. 201 yards, 3 touchdowns on 24 carries, almost 9 yards a carry. That puts him over the 1,400-yard mark, 1,474 yards on the season to be exact, 25 tutties. Man, he's been balling out of control, and he's one reason that the Oilers are undefeated, and they got a big game this week coming up against Dickinson. Man, let's talk about this stuff, man. We're going to take a small break on the show, pause, couple of commercials here, and then we're going to hit you with these games this week. You know what I'm saying? That's why we ran through some guys that balled out this week. Shout out to those guys, those Third Coast top performers this week. But the area around is so packed with good games. We got to talk about this stuff right here on the TCG, the Third Coast Gridiron, Ace Times Podcast. We'll be right back.
Hey, do you need topsoil, fill dirt, sand, mulch, gravel, limestone, you name it? Do you need that delivered and or spread? Texas Tree Cycle in Victoria has you covered for residential and commercial projects, big or small. These guys do it all. They do some amazing work. You can call them at 361-237-8006 for a free estimate. That's Texas Tree Cycle, bringing quality materials to your yard.
The last 2 undefeated teams in the H meet up in the second round. This could be a regional final type of matchup. You know what I'm saying? Now, it was some matchups in the first round. We talked about this, last week. That could have been, second or third round matchups or fourth round matchups. But Dickinson and Pearland, man, this is one of those games. The Oilers are averaging 48 points a game. They've scored over 500 points. They're undefeated. They were 16-0 a few years ago and scored 666 points. This was around 2010, somewhere in there. But the Oilers have been playing well. We just talked about the running back that's playing well. You got one of the better defenses, in the state, not just in the area. But they got to take on Dickinson, who's got one of the elite quarterbacks in the area. And now you can start talking about around the state and Lorenzo Aguiar. He's been playing at a high level all season long. He can spin it, quick release, ability to throw and run. He's been carrying these guys under center. And at this point in time in the season, especially deep in the playoffs, elite quarterback play can decide games. It's the difference between a state title and you going home early and getting, helmets to the left, pass to the right. You know what I'm saying? Turn in your equipment, or you ready to go hoop. You know what I'm saying? In one of these tournaments or something. These guys have been playing at a high level. You know what I mean? So, I think this is one of the bigger games in the state. Of course, Pearland's ranked number 5. I think number 3 in some rankings. You know what I'm saying? And Dickinson's also in the top 10. This is a big matchup. I think this is probably one of the better games around the state. Forget just the H. You know what I'm saying? This is one of those games. I think it's going to come down to who executes late in the game. It could also come down to extra points, field goals, special teams. This is a big game. You know what I'm saying? Definitely you want to have your eyes on this one. North Shore and Ridge Point, it'll be Friday over at Thorne. This is a big game, 6A D1. I mean, you can't get any bigger than this. We've been talking about Ridge Point all year as a team that we thought that could come out of this region. North Shore has had a couple of hiccups. They had a 27-0 loss to Summer Creek at the last game of the year. First game of the year, they lose to South Oak Cliff up in Dallas. But North Shore's dealt with a lot. But I think, it all starts with Caleb Maryland. At the helm. Dorian Barnes is one of those guys that's a playmaker for them. But North Shore's faced 2 top 10 teams in the state of Texas in the first and the last week. Ridge Point's got one of the best offensive lines in the state. This is going to be a game that's going to come down to the trenches. I like Ridge Point in this game. They had a tough one last week against Dawson, but I think that was their toughest game of the year, and we saw them kind of come out and do what they should be doing, with the defensive stop. Dawson was down with 2 seconds left inside the 5 and missed the pass for a touchdown. I think that North Shore can win this game. They got to play a clean game. They got to do what they need to do, cut down the penalties. That Maryland's going to be, one of those guys that's going to be at the forefront of them making big plays. They got the talent to do this, and so does Ridge Point. Ridge Point's one of the most talented teams in the state. This is a big game. Again, we told you there was some big games in the area around this weekend. We're talking about that right here on TCG. Katy Memorial. Listen, Memorial's had an outstanding season at 10-1. Katy comes to this one 9-2, 6AD2 matchup. The winner of this one will play Summer Creek or Manville. You know what I'm saying? We'll get to that game shortly. But shout out to Coach Brooks Hawk. He's had a great season with those guys. Of course, Katy's the Big Red Machine. They've been there, done that. This is a program that's playing in playoffs year after year. You know what I'm saying? They're going to run the football. You know what I'm saying? Tremaine Hill is an outstanding running back. You know what I'm saying? He's 200 yards from reaching 2,000 on the season. And Katy's 7-0 against Memorial since 2006. They last met in the playoffs in 2022. The Mustangs haven't reached the 3rd round since 2013. They need this. They want this as a program. But you got to look at the Big Red Machine as being there and done that. I expect a heavy dose of heel, I formation coming down here, play action over the top to the tight end when they need it. This is the recipe for success for Katy. You got to look at that. Memorial's, they're a new kid on the block at this deep of playoff run and success. Don't sleep on them, though. Seeing King Shadow Creek is one of the most interesting matchups. Friday over at Sheldon ISD Stadium. Hey, east side of things. You know what I'm saying? Shadow Creek's coming.
Coaches, boosters, parents, every sport deserves a spotlight. From football and volleyball to basketball, soccer, baseball, softball, track, wrestling, and more. Give your athletes a weekly coaches show that builds pride and raises funds. Lone Star Podcast Network makes it turnkey. You talk for a few minutes. We handle production and distribution. Sponsors love it. Families share it. And your program benefits. Get the free information kit at LoneStarPodcast.com/coaches. That's LoneStarPodcast.com/coaches. Your team, your sport, your show.
Lone Star Gridiron is looking for interns. Over the years, we have helped dozens of students get jobs in sports media. If you want to shortcut your path to a career in sports media, click on the internship link on LoneStarGridiron.com.
Timothy Potts, I think, has been one of those guys for Seed King that's been kind of getting overlooked under the radar. Of course, we know about Dylan Mitchell and Deion Sims. Those guys have been playing at a high level as well. But, Potts, listen, he's a guy that can get it done. I had a chance to see him against North Shore, and he was, he was dealing, ability to run, make plays outside the pocket. He made some timely throws. They just couldn't punch it in against North Shore. They stayed close, but it wasn't, like they had the lead or anything like that. North Shore kind of controlled the tempo up front on the offensive side of the football. But I think this is a game that both teams can win. But I think Seed King's, looking forward to getting back, to these deeper rounds of the playoffs. And in Shadow Creek, listen, they got some of the top talent in the state for sure. You know what I'm saying? They want to reach the 3rd round of the playoffs for the first time since 2020. This is the Sharks' moment. They got to take care of business here. You know what I'm saying? So I expect this to be a barn burner. You know, I expect a lot of points to be scored in this particular matchup. But Potts is a guy who's got 27 touchdowns on the season. Has only thrown one pick. That's great. And, you know, C.E. King's putting up 53, almost 54 points a game. So it's going to be some points scored. Who defensively comes up with the stops, that's going to be the main thing. The Woodlands and Klein Collins, listen, shout out to Klein Collins. They've been doing great. You know, the Woodlands has, of course, one of the better quarterbacks in the state, and TCU commit Jack Dalton. He had a great game against Aldine Davis, had 3 tutties. You know what I'm saying? He has 21 touchdown passes and only 2 interceptions this season. That's efficient. You know what I mean? I think that this is a game that's going to come down to who makes the best plays. It probably could come down to a field goal. But I like Dalton, and I like the Woodlands in this game. I really do. Shout out to JY for the big victory, man. Shout out to Jack Yates, man. They got the big victory in week 1 to move on to the second round of the playoffs. I think that these guys have the talent to do some good things. We just have to wait and see. But man, shout out to JY. We're going to always big up. We're going to always shout out HISD because I'm an HISD product myself. You know what I'm saying? A couple of big games left. We talked about Grand Oaks. They got a big matchup with Cypress Ranch. I think that this will be a closer game than people think. Cinco Ranch and Cypress Falls. We'll see what happens on that one. Drake, Jesuit, and Lamar. I look for Herbert to continue that play. You know, to continue to rumble. Summer Creek and Manville, that's going to be a pretty tight one. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my guy Cam Renfro, man. He's been playing at a high level, the quarterback over at Manville, really distributing the ball around to his playmakers and getting it where he needs it to be. That's a big game. You know what I'm saying? And we'll see what happens with that. You know what I mean? But that's all we got for you this week right here on the TCG, the Third Coast Gridiron. Again, follow us on Twitter at Third Gridiron, man. Tap in, hit the DMs, man. You listen to the show, man. Let us know you enjoying it. This is what we do, man. The Third Coast Gridiron is on the Lone Star Gridiron Network every week, and we're gonna get you right, man. We're gonna lace you up with the best in high school football in the H, because this is H-Town's podcast, the Third Coast Gridiron. We out.
Coaches, boosters, parents, every sport deserves a spotlight. From football and volleyball to basketball, soccer, baseball, softball, track, wrestling, and more. Give your athletes a weekly coaches show that builds pride and raises funds. Lone Star Podcast Network makes it turnkey. You talk for a few minutes. We handle production and distribution. Sponsors love it. Families share it. And your program benefits. Get the free information kit at LoneStarPodcast.com/coaches. That's LoneStarPodcast.com/coaches. Your team, your sport, your show.